Today we're making Miso Black Cod, a traditional Japanese dish from Kyoto, and it's known for its sweet and umami balance and has been made popular around the world by Mr. Matsuhisa Nobu. And it's surprisingly easy to make. We start with the marinade. First up, we have the white miso, which adds the signature sweetness and the mild umami flavor. Traditionally, and if you want to go the extra mile, you would use saikyo miso, which is a signature ingredient in Kyoto cuisine. But for the home kitchen, any white miso would do. To that, we add some sake for depth and mild sweetness. This will also remove any unwanted fishiness from the fish. Some mirin to reinforce the sweetness and to add some thickness. If you're making this for the first time and don't want to commit to so many potentially costly ingredients, I would simply double the mirin and ditch the sake. Some sugar, again to reinforce the sweetness and to enhance the caramelization once it hits the grill or the oven. And we're quite generous with the sugar. Today, for the purpose of demonstration, we're trying to get as close to the original recipe as possible. Make it once and adjust it to your own palate. For me personally, for example, I would completely ditch the sugar and add a bit more salt, which was not present in most traditional recipes. Now, we simply bring in enough heat for everything to dissolve together. You don't need to bring this to a boil. And you can see how fine the white miso is compared to the darker versions, where you would normally see visible grains. Once you have a smooth texture, that's most of your active cooking done. We set this aside to cool down, and let's talk about the fish. Now, black cod, despite its name, has nothing to do with actual cod. Formerly, it's known as sablefish. It's given the pet name cod simply because of how it looks and how it flakes. It is known for its rich, buttery texture and very high fat and oil content. It is the natural oil that would act as the vehicle for both distributing and retaining flavor. And for any marination, the cleaner the surface, the better the marination process goes. And particularly for something that has been frozen, since we don't have access to the Pacific, I like to go through the extra step of using starch to clean it thoroughly. So, very simple. Here we have some potato starch. You can use cornstarch, you can use any starch you fancy. And we simply put a layer, generously, all over the cod, everywhere. And because of the moisture absorption capabilities and the ability of the starch to bind to many things, this, when we rinse, will take with us all the unwanted sliminess, anything that happened during transportation of the fish, freezing of the fish. It's a step I like to do with most fish fillets, unless they're freshly filleted. So once you have a very good coating, wash it thoroughly until the water runs clear. But for the purpose of camera, I just want to show you the difference even after one rinse. Try this as thoroughly as we can. Now, let's marinate some fish. Make sure the marinade has properly cooled down. Perfect. The beauty of this dish is that the fat-soluble compounds in the white miso and the alcohol of the mirin and the sake binds extremely well with the fish oil of the black cod. But this occurs more gradually than something that's simply water-soluble, which explains the much longer than usual marination period, especially for fish, of 2 to 3 days. But then, the longer it takes for something to get in, the harder it is for them to get out, which is exactly what we want. The loose flesh structure, compared to leaner fish, like the actual cod, allows the marinade to permeate more effectively. But again, the recipe is a guideline. This marinade works perfectly well with any oily fish, salmon, kingfish or hamachi, yellowtail. They all work. So don't let the shopping stop you from cooking this. Now, once everything is thoroughly covered, this goes into an airtight container, Ziploc bag, whatever you choose, and I'll see you in 3 days. After 3 days and wiping off all the excess marinade, this is ready. Even though it smells tasty, it's important to remove the excess because the sugar and the sugar content from the white miso would make this burn before it cooks. As you can see, the fish has taken on some of the color of the white miso, showing how far the marinade has gone. Now we transfer this to our roasting tray. You can cook this however you like, but for the home kitchen, we'll grill at very high heat in the oven. Tiny layer of fat It's unlikely to stick given the high fat content anyway, but just to be on the safe side. Now, even though most fine dining restaurants nowadays serve this beauty flesh side up, it is still important to roast this skin side up. A, for the skin and the high amount of fat under the skin to protect the flesh. B, to get that crispy, slightly charred skin that is extremely prized in Kyoto and in Japan in general. And once again, even though it has the high oil content, we apply a thin layer for even cooking in the beginning. And this beauty goes into top shelf preheated oven, 230 degrees Celsius for 7 to 10 minutes. After 7 minutes, look at this beauty. Slightly charred on the edges, beautifully golden brown. You want to aim for core temperature of 52 degrees Celsius when it comes out from the oven. And the carryover cooking would bring it over the line to 55, the perfect temperature for Miso Black Cod. Now, today, if you could forgive me for going old school, we're serving this beauty skin side up. And the true best friend for miso cod is not rice. You need rice, but it's Japanese pickles. And that's the famous Miso Black Cod done.